My next guests are longtime hosts of EWTN's Web of Faith 2.0. They're here tonight to share their latest book, Web of Faith, A Curious Catholic's Answers to Theological Questions. Please welcome Father John Trigilio and Father Ken Brighenti. They both join us from New York City. Let's get right to it. This new book, Web of Faith, obviously based on the classic format of the EWTN program. You started, Father John, with Bob Levis many years ago. What inspired you to assemble this book now?
I have to give credit to Doug Keck. He's the one that asked if we would be interested in putting this into book form, because there's so many people that maybe have never saw the show or listened to the radio broadcast. And this was a fascinating project for me and Father Brighenti. So it brought back a lot of memories of our dialogue going back and forth. But we made sure we set up the format that it would follow the same structure as the catechism. So we got the 4 pillars. That's how the book is basically divided.
Father Ken, you're a parish priest in New Jersey in addition to co-hosting Web of Faith 2.0. What have you learned from hosting the show? And how does this kind of Catholic apologetics inform your priesthood?
Well, first of all, I've noticed that a lot of the questions that people write in are questions that we sometimes deal with on a daily basis in the parish. A lot of people get confusing information out there, and so they're always inquiring about certain things of doctrine or liturgical practice or sacramentals or even history, and they're hungry for that. And people like question and answer format. I mean, I know that's the first thing I go to when I see a journal. If they have the question and answer section, I really enjoy that part of the journal. So I think that format works very well, and I think people also find that very helpful because they're nice little short, concise answers that they could use for their own edification or for people that may be doubting our faith or struggling with it.
Yeah, the book covers a lot of ground, from doctrine to liturgy, morality, prayer, and really everything in between. It's almost a Baltimore catechism for the digital age. Father John, how has the internet contributed to evangelization during this pandemic? I know you all have been doing your own web version of the TV show. Whose idea was that?
Yeah.
It was Father Brighenti's.
That
was something for us to do, and we really enjoyed doing it. We worked with his parochial vicar, Father Matthew Marinelli. He was like our producer and director in that. And I saw the great opportunity, too, because even though we were in the pandemic and a lot of people were in lockdown, people were asking questions about the faith, and this wonderful medium of being able to have access, whether it's through social media like Facebook or just using regular internet access and YouTube and that. It's basically the same thing that we were doing at EWTN, albeit a bit more informal and not as high-tech or slick and polished as we do down in Alabama. But it was still the same sort of end goal, was to explain the faith and show that Catholicism is reasonable.
Because the format was so familiar to people, and we placed it on our YouTube, we were getting questions from all over, like Florida, Canada, as well as parishioners. So it was really kind of fun to see where the questions were coming in on a daily basis to the parish, and we had the opportunity then to answer it practically the next day.
Father Ken, you and Father John have collaborated on other books prior to this, most notably Catholicism for Dummies, that whole series. How does Web of Faith differ, this new book, from those other projects? And is this, did you cull the best answers from the years of your doing the show and sort of collate them here around topics?
Right. It does differ because it's more in a conversational style than the other books that we had written for. The other books are, more like the question and answer traditionally, the way they're done. But this is like the TV show. So we actually got the script from the TV series, and then of course we put it in good grammar, but it has that conversational flow. So I would answer part of it, and then Father Trigilio would answer a part of it, and then might be a summation and some bits of humor in it. So that's the aspect where it's a little bit different. Where it's similar is that it's set up according to the Catechism, and we also have an imprimatur on it from my bishop. So it's which is like the good housekeeping seal for doctrine. So that way it's a little bit similar, but it is more approachable, I think, and more conversational in style.
Father John and then Father Ken, what's the toughest question you've ever received? One that made you go, I need to think about this a little bit, maybe do a little research.
Well, I'll say one that's a little with levity was people asked if Jesus had a pet when he was growing up. I said, I have no idea. If they find Pooch or Kitty's skeletons in the Holy Land, I don't know. But from the ridiculous to the sublime, some profound questions regarding how Jesus is present in the Most Holy Eucharist, and how long is his presence in our soul after we receive Holy Communion. These are wonderful questions that you get typically as a parish priest, but even as teaching at the seminary. So we go from the whole gamut of the spectrum of the very easy or the very complicated.
Father Ken?
I think probably the more difficult ones would be the areas of morality, especially the areas where our culture is putting like their approval on it, and of course the Church teaches very differently because it actually could be very hurtful and harmful. And because the culture and the media have so bought into certain things and ideas, it has confused Catholics, and so you get many questions on that level. Maybe it's their children or their grandchildren who have been away at school, and then they're writing to us saying, I need some clarification for it. So, the whole gamut from transgenderism to same-sex marriage to cloning and all sorts of things. I would say those are probably the more challenging ones. The easier ones would be, like the sacramentals and things of that nature, which are kind of fun, and lives of the saints and all that. But the area of morality, which is being challenged in our by us today in our media, is probably where it's most important and also probably difficult.
Father John, what do you want folks to learn from this new collection and this particular arrangement of these classic questions and answers?
Well, I would like people to know that, again, Catholicism is reasonable, and obviously faith is something that you take it's a gift from God. So we're not proving the faith, but we're showing that the faith is reasonable and is not in violation to what we know through logic and reason. And that Catholicism is interesting, that we cover things that, from going way back from the beginning of time, Adam and Eve and original sin, but as Father Brighenti just mentioned, from some very, new topical things like transgenderism, aspects of cloning, euthanasia, and issues like, giving communion, to politicians who support abortion. So I want people to know that Catholicism is here, it's reasonable, and I would say fascinating.
Father Ken, is there a danger of focusing too much on answers to basic questions and not the broader context, the historical context of where these practices, where these beliefs originated? Is there something lost when you're trying to communicate quickly with people? Those answer their questions, and at times that history shakes out.
Yeah, well, we try to, in our TV series, and of course then the book which presents these questions, is to give some historical background where we can. Because we always say that's part of our patrimony, and this is where our teachings come from. And then, so we always try to actually do that because it makes more sense for them as we develop, our teaching in these later problems that we're, as a church, facing now in the 21st century. But the principles are existing from the time of our blessed Lord. So we always try to do that. We start that way, either from sacred scripture, or if we can, or from our doctrinal teaching and patrimony, and then lead them up to the present. So that's why some of the questions on the TV series could be very long, and some, of course, are shorter because of the nature of the question.
Okay, well, we will leave it there. Web of Faith, A Curious Catholic's Answers to Theological Questions by Father John Trigilio and Father Ken Brighenti is available at bookstores everywhere and online at EWTNRC.com from EWTN Publishing. Fathers, thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Raymond.
Thank you.